Climate migration is often described as a future crisis. It isn't. It is already happening, just not in the way that most people realize. When people hear climate migration, they imagine mass border crossings, endless lines, sudden chaos, headlines. But most climate migration, it doesn't look like that. It's gradual, it's internal, and it's economic. Research shows most climate-related displacements occur within countries, not across borders. So people, they move from villages to cities, something that we've already touched base on. But they also move from unstable regions to slightly more stable ones. And people rarely move because of one significant event, contrary to popular belief. They move because systems inherently stop working. Things that they once relied upon are now no longer either available or reliable. What do I mean by that? Well, water becomes unreliable, the essence of life. Farming incomes tend to drop, and agrarian communities, they have no choice. Jobs in smaller cities and villages, even large-scale cities, they start to disappear. Costs tend to rise, and eventually, a culmination of all of this comes together, and staying becomes harder than just leaving. But people, they don't just leave behind their homes. Maybe cities, places, towns, communities they've grown up in. People oftentimes leave behind their very identity in search of survival. So that puts us in this predicament wherein we have to talk about a couple of uncomfortable truths. Number one, migration is not a last resort. It is a rational economic decision. As a matter of fact, migration studies explicitly mention that people often move because conditions become catastrophic. And humans, surprisingly, do not wait for complete collapse before making the decision to move. Can you blame them? So most climate migration, it ends in cities. And cities, they try to absorb these incoming populations. But infrastructure, that doesn't scale instantly. So housing pressures increase. Services tend to get strained. But worst case yet, informal economies, they tend to grow. And inequalities widen. So where implications of migration comes in from the left, you're looking at existing systems being compromised and informal economies being emboldened. Which brings me to my next point. International migration is far more visible than domestic migration. What do I mean by that? Well, climate stress, that interacts with borders, policies, and economies, as we've touched base on multiple other videos on this channel. And if you haven't had the opportunity to explore just yet, I urge you to take a look around. Those videos are just as important as this one. Global migration patterns, they show environmental stress as a contributing factor among many other drivers. But migration is rarely just because of the climate. It's climate plus everything else. Which brings me to uncomfortable truth number two. And this one might be a little hard to get, but bear with me. Migration is not always a problem. It is often a solution. It allows people to adapt, to find work, to survive. But it becomes a crisis when systems, they fail to absorb this influx of people. They fail to absorb migration. So migration, it reshapes economies. Labor markets, they tend to shift. Cities, they tend to grow. Rural regions that once surrounded these cities, they tend to shrink. And remittances, here's a factor that oftentimes gets overlooked. Remittances, they change financial flows. Money that was once being circulated within the confines of a city is now going out of it. Implications, the likes of which most of us don't seem to understand just yet. So as migration increases, politics responds. You see, policies, they tend to tighten because of budding call to do so. Debates, they intensify. There is often a finger-pointing match that is either accepting or rejecting this influx of migrants. Narratives, they tend to harden. And the divide between one thought process and the other, that tends to get wider and wider. Because of which, complexity, that gets overtly simplified at great dismay. Because nothing improves decision-making like turning complex systems into slogans. Think about it. And while you do, let me throw another uncomfortable truth in your direction. Migration will continue. despite everything, because underlying pressures will continue. Heat, water stress, economic instability will all continue. Things will continue to get worse. Debating migration does not stop the drivers behind it. And the sooner we tend to realize this, the more we tend to understand the true intricacies behind climate migration. So the real question is not whether climate migration will happen. It already is. It's whether systems are ready for it. If cities, economies, and policies are ready for it. Because migration, that's not the disruption. Unprepared systems are. If this changed how you think about migration, subscribe. We've done one of these before. We're going to do one in the near future as well, because climate migration is a big topic to discuss. And there are different factors and facets that come into this. This is noviksgiven. We'd really appreciate you sticking around. If you've not already, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. We are new, we're growing, but we're here for the long haul, and we'll make sure that we keep bringing you these insights, because if there's one thing that we can have is a conversation. I'll see you in the next one.